Good evening. It's Pastor Bruce. It's May the 12th, 2021, Wednesday night. And it is our last Wednesday night together. Sunday, of course, is my last Sunday with you. And it's bittersweet joy that we have finished this process, but I will miss all of you. As I was thinking about this last chance we have to do a Wednesday night together, I thought of the movie MacArthur and his last speech in that movie to the Corps of Cadets at West Point. He loved West Point. He said that West Point was his home. And one of the things that he said was, what's the most important thing? And he says, the Corps. Talking about the Corps of Cadets that were there at West Point. I'm sure he felt that way because, as he said, West Point had been his home. I guess what I would say for us as we close out my time with you in this process is, what's the most important thing? And I would say the congregation. I hope that all of us have seen that this process leads you to understand how to work together as a congregation to work through whatever problems, issues, things that you need to do, and how to do it together. We spent many hours. Some of them were tough hours, either on Sunday mornings or on Saturday nights or other times, gathering together as many as we could as a congregation to work through issues, work through understanding what we thought, what we believed. And I must say, you all came out in all of these things very much together, which pleased me to no end. So as we made determinations about, do we want to be pastoral led or congregationally led? It was clear that you wanted to be a congregationally led church. And as we put together a structure that would help you be more of that, having a leadership group and a ministry group, so that as a congregation you could work together on these issues, and these groups help you then to see what needs to be done and help you get it done. So, one of the things that your new pastor needs to understand is that you do want to be congregationally led, and he needs to lead a congregation. Now that sounds redundant, and you say, well, of course he needs to lead the congregation. But what I mean to say is that he needs to provide congregational leadership. He needs to help you as a congregation work through whatever you need to work through as a congregation. Not as a small group dictating to the rest of the church, not as a pastor saying, well, this is what we think we need to do, and here's what you need to do. The reason that we take so much pain in the intentional interim process on working together as a congregation is to try to make sure that we can all be on the same page and having had input into what's on that page. Because the more people that are involved in making the decisions, the more that they have input, the more that they have a stake in what's going to happen. See, I think that what happens in a lot of churches is there are small groups that make decisions for churches, and they say, this is what we're going to do. And you go into business meeting, they vote, yeah, mm-hmm. And first of all, they've never had any part in coming up with that decision. They've never really thought it through. The difference is in intentional interim ministry, we create those times when we gather together to make those decisions together. So at least you've had that. And then hopefully as the implementation of those things come about, the congregation is involved in implementing them, not just a few people, but try to get as many people involved as possible. I know that's tough. So many people think that church is coming to church on Sunday morning, listening to the sermon, and going home till next week. And that's the way it's going to be in many churches. The difference, I hope, is that after we've gone through this intentional interim process, is that we have gotten more people thinking and understanding about the processes that we've put together to come up with our mission, vision, ministry plan. Our mission, vision, ministry plan isn't outrageous. I mean, it's based basically on the Great Commission. Make disciples, teach them, bring them into the life of the church. Now, that's the big umbrella that all mission councils should be looking at. How are we fulfilling the Great Commission? And then translating that into how do we as First Baptist in Woodstock, Virginia, do those things. You're not a church in Chicago. You're not a church in Los Angeles. You're not a church in Miami. Woodstock, Virginia, Shenandoah County is different than all of that. So your mission is how God has you fulfill the Great Commission where you are. You may not do spectacular things, but you fulfill the ministry that God has for you among the people where God has placed you. So don't worry about spectacular. Don't worry about all of that stuff. Come together as a congregation. Look at the needs of the people in this area. The needs of the church to fulfill the Great Commission among those people. And do that. Just do that. You know, it sounds very simplistic. And in one way it is. Now, you do need to look at the community and really see what's needed. There's no doubt about it. You need to look at your own church and see what's needed. You see, the idea of discipleship, you know, disciples are made. You know, we become Christians and then we are to be discipled. We are to be made into the image of Jesus Christ. Of course, the Holy Spirit does that. But we need people to help us. We need people to help us to learn how to pray. We need to have people teach us how to understand and learn and study from the Bible. We need to have people teach us how to reach out to other people with the love of Jesus Christ. And as we learn those things, we also become teachers of those things. I remember when I first started sailing, my sailing coach was going to be late one day, and we had a new learner of sailing coming with us that day. And so my coach calls me up and says, "Bruce, take the boat out with our new guy and give him a good beginner's course in what sailing is all about." I was like, wait a minute, I'm a learner myself. But that was a good thing. We did go out, you know, and I was able to talk him through the basic parts of what we were doing in sailing. thankfully, within about a half an hour, we saw the coach come up on the dock, and I took the boat back to the dock, and coach got on board, and we went the rest of the day. But you see, it really cemented for me that I was becoming a sailor when I was able to take someone else and lead them through what it meant to become someone who could take a sailboat out and enjoy it. And that gave me a lot of confidence myself. So somewhere along the line, we stopped becoming just learners, and we need to become teachers. Paul does that with one of the churches, and it escapes me where it was, but he says, by now you all ought to be teachers. But by now you ought to know a lot of this stuff, but we're going to go back and we're going to go through the basics again, and then we're going to lay them aside because you will have learned them. And I hope that during this intentional interim process that you have learned the basics, and that is that congregational life means that we work together, we get together, we think together, and then we come up together with what we sense God is leading us to do, and then we set out to do it. And basically that's what it means to be congregationally led. It's when you gather together. See, the problem is that the larger churches get, the more difficult that becomes. And then what happens is, you in a church that it's large and grows, is what they do is in smaller areas, like certain ministries, they gather together and decide what they're going to do in certain ministries together, and have that congregational life within a certain area of ministry. And in a large church, there's multiple areas of ministry. So that's the difference between the smaller and the larger church that's really doing congregational ministry. Now, you've done one thing, because you're not a small church anymore, is that you have a leadership council now, and their goal is to help to lead you in making right decisions, making and understanding the kind of decisions you need to make. They're not making decisions for you, but they're taking the time to research the decisions and directions that you need to go in, so that they can, you can understand how best to make decisions. And that's a compromise from the very small church where 25, 30 people, which is about all a church is, get together on a business meeting, and they can all do those small group things that we did. But you're not that, and you are grow, and you will grow. And I'm hoping that we've set you up so that as you continue to grow, you can continue this sense of making sure everybody's on the same page, and us working together to understand where we're going. Because again, the more people who understand what we're doing and why, and have had a part in making those decisions, the more people you have on board, the more chance you have of success. And I think that's, you have a great chance of success. Again, one of the keys is the pastor that comes in has to be a pastor who understands what it means to be a leader of leaders. I look at people in history, and I guess one of the greatest examples is Eisenhower. Goodness gracious, during World War II, leading a coalition, United States, France, Great Britain, Europe, and Russia. I mean, people that were vastly different, yet they had a common cause. I'm a fan of General George Patton, and of course, he always felt like that Eisenhower was putting the English General Montgomery ahead of him in doing things. Patton, as Patton would say, I could have already been in Berlin. Just give me the gas for my tanks and we'll go. And of course, Eisenhower had to understand, and he did understand, that Europe and Britain had been in this war a lot longer than we had. And so to give Montgomery the lead in this campaign to get to Berlin had a lot of other good things, not just George Patton's ego. So I say that to say that a pastor needs to understand the various facets of a church and how they work together. And there may be times when he shifts some resources and things to an area that needs to be done, and that's where he doesn't dictate, but moves things in areas that he sees, and that's the key of a pastor. It's a key leader to kind of stand and look over all and see the big picture. A lot of us, as we're doing little ministries, we don't see the big picture. We just see what we're doing. So a pastor that understands congregational ministry and how to lead a congregation is going to be very, very, very important to you. I think your pastor search committee knows that. So, as you look at the pastors that they may bring forward to you, I think that's one of the things that you need to think of and pray about as you make decisions about any pastor. As an intentional interminister, we come together, we do all of this work. We spend all of this time in small groups. We spend all of this time making decisions together. We come together and decide upon a ministry, a vision, and a ministry plan. Mission, vision, ministry plan. And I'll be honest, I've seen churches get a new pastor and throw that thing out the door, and they just go in a different direction. They go wherever the pastor wants to go. And I don't want to be a person that says that what we did was the most important, though I think it was. I hope that you will honor that time that we've done together, not for me, but for yourselves, and really stay focused on that. It'll need changes. It'll need to be worked on. It'll need to be developed. We made a big umbrella. There's no way around that. And you're going to have to put a lot of the spokes into that thing. So that's not understandable. That's understandable. But you see, I think churches have for so long said, okay, let's get us a pastor and let him tell us where to go. And that's why so many churches, I think, have problems in that, the new pastor gets there and somewhere along the line, his idea of where to go and your idea of where to go don't mesh. And there becomes problems. At least at this point, you have worked together enough on where you believe this church needs to go, at least in a very broad sense of that. And it leaves plenty of room for the creativity and the ministry of the Holy Spirit to work in your church. Plenty. So I hope that process that we have learned will stay with you. I hope that the work that we have done will provide a guide as you move forward. I hope that as a congregationally led church, you will remind a new pastor that we've done a lot of this work and we need to kind of stick to it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I know the pastor search committee is working as they look toward a new pastor to say, hey, we've got this mission, vision, ministry plan. We've gone through this process. Can you look at it and be on board with it and help us move it forward? They're doing that. It's like everything else. We sometimes need to have ourselves held to account for doing those things. So I have great hope for you. I think we did great work. I've enjoyed the intentional interim process that I have done with you probably as much or more than I have any other church. You worked well together, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought there was a lot more of a dichotomy between you, but I didn't see that. You came together well. You worked together well. You made decisions well. So any pastor would be happy to have a congregation that is as unified in what you've decided upon. So many churches are way divided. You're divided in some areas, but it's petty stuff, But the big issues you were together on, and that's important. So, for our last Wednesday night, I wish you well. I pray that you get a new pastor, and I'm not going to say soon. Be great if you did. I know that. But the right pastor, or a right pastor, is better than a quick pastor. And I'm praying that you give your pastor search committee the time they need. Have patience with them. I know it's been a long time, and you're probably used to having a new pastor in by now and all that, and it's taken time. I understand that. But please be patient. God may have somebody that He's chosen for you that is not quite ready to be in that position to come and be with you. God is patient and is working on that end to get that pastor to you. You must be patient to let God work to bring you that pastor. Remember, it's a God thing, and God is at work for you. Not to do it fast, but to bring the right person. Be patient. Love one another while that's happening. So, I will see you on Sunday morning, our last Sunday together. It is Ascension Sunday. We'll celebrate Christ's ascension into heaven. Those great two ending Easter season celebrations, Ascension and Pentecost, come right together. So we'll do Ascension this Sunday. So I hope that you are continuing, I know you are continuing to pray as this church moves forward. Keep the Pastor Search Committee in your prayers every day, multiple times a day. Bathe them in prayer. They're good people. They're working together, so they know what to do. And I've been with them, but they've got Skip to help them as well. So they're in good hands, and I think you can trust them. So do that. All right. So till we see each other on Sunday, God's blessings. Go home safely and enjoy your evening. And I pray God's restful sleep for you tonight. God bless you. I'll see you Sunday. Bye.